Today on Audio Expo, we're going to take a look at the Harman Kardon Rabco line of turntables. Harman Kardon's a pretty well-known brand in the consumer electronics industry, their biggest time being more in the late 50s and into the 70s. But you may be wondering what the heck a Rabco is. Rabco is actually a brand, and it's a line of turntable tone arms that came out, best I can tell, in the late 60s. But this type of tone arm worked differently from the pivoted type tone arms most people are familiar with. This type of tone arm is called a linear tracking or tangential tracking tone arm. The right-hand side of this diagram shows a typical pivoted tone arm turntable, where the arm sits on a pivot and moves across the record in an arc. On the left-hand side is a diagram of a tangential or linear tracking tone arm, where, as you can see in the diagram, the arm actually moves across the record in a straight line, as opposed to an arc. The linear action simulates the way a record is actually manufactured, where the grooves are cut in a straight line across the record. The theory behind this type of tone arm is that it actually tracks the record the same way it's created, which should result, at least in theory, in better sound. The Harman Kardon Rabco line started with the ST7 model, which came out around 1975. After the ST7, they released an ST8 and an ST5. Both of these were improvements in one way or another over the original ST7. One of the things I always wondered about linear tracking turntables is how they made sure that that arm, which was moving across the record in a linear fashion, kept up the proper speed with the spinning of the record. The original design of the Rabco tone arms, and also Technics-style linear tracking tone arms, do not actually move constantly. They sit still for a moment and wait until the arm starts to drag a little bit, and then, using an electric motor, will actually move the entire tone arm carriage a little bit forward to realign the stylus in the groove. Then it will stop and wait for it to drag a little bit and do the same thing. So the whole tone arm mechanism kind of zigzags across the record, falling a little bit behind, then moving a little bit forward. Taking a look at this Technics SL-BL3, if you watch the white arrow closely, you can see how the mechanism kind of jumps along. It's subtle, but that is how it works. I would argue it's not truly linear tracking since it's shifting off a little bit each time. There's certainly arguments to be made that you don't really hear that and there's no audio quality effect. Harman Kardon either believed they could improve on this or just made changes for budgetary reasons. But the Harman Kardon line of Rabco tone arms on the ST turntables was a very significant change from how they worked prior to being bought by Harman Kardon. Instead of being bumped along like previous designs, the Harman Kardon version of the Rabco tone arm was actually directly connected to the spinning platter of the turntable. Here's a look at the internals of the turntable. The platter has been removed to get a better look at how things work. As the platter spins, there's a belt, which is like a big O-ring, that's connected to the tone arm carriage mechanism. The bar at the bottom spins, and the carriage mechanism has a wheel that rides along this bar. Together, the combination of motion results in the tone arm carriage moving along with the record in a linear fashion. Since this carriage motion is directly connected to the platter spinning, they move at the exact same speed, with no variances as the tone arm carriage moves along the record. The ST5 and ST8 models improved on this design by also spinning the upper bar that the carriage rides along. This is my ST8, and there's an interesting story that goes with it. All of a sudden, on the turntable forums, a person popped up wanting to sell his ST8. Turned out this person was Frank Holetsky, who was one of the actual mechanical designers that worked at Harman Kardon and worked on this turntable. As a turntable nerd, I jumped on the chance and bought it from him. Should have had him sign it. But interestingly, his name is printed on the back. This was back in the summer of 2015. It arrived in great operating condition, but I had a few things that I wanted to do to it, and it took me a couple of years before I really got it working the way I wanted to. At that point, I reached out to Frank to thank him and tell him how much I was enjoying the turntable, and unfortunately found out that he had passed away late in 2015. He couldn't have been nicer to deal with, and I'm proud to own one of his personal turntables. Now it's time to watch my Rabco ST8 in action. Special thanks to Jeremy Heiden, whose song You're Not Alone I'm going to feature today. It's off of his album Blue Wicked, and I contacted him to confirm that I could use it, and he couldn't be nicer. What a great guy. And Blue Wicked is a great album. Really diverse and interesting, with some good rock, some synth. It's a really enjoyable album, so make sure and check it out.
I know you feel alone. Sometimes it's hard when you have no one to relate to. But if you wait, you will see that you are not alone. 'Cause I'm here waiting for you as we walk along. What does that mean? I guess it's that nothing could come between something we feel so true inside. Like this, you had to believe there was someone like me. You would think, could it be true? Could the world
Okay, now it's time for some quick restoration tips. One of the most common problems with the Harman Kardon Rabco ST turntables is the bulbs that sit underneath the stop and speed controls burn out. These are regular incandescent style bulbs, and you can't find replacements. The problem with the replacements is they're not color coded. The original bulbs in these turntables had a color coding where the stop was red, the 33 1/3 was green, and the 45 was blue. A common modification is to switch these bulbs out for LED style bulbs. The good news is that you can find colored LED bulbs that fit perfectly into the socket, which is a BA9S style bayonet socket. The bad news is that you can't just drop them into the socket because the circuit that controls the speed of the spinning platter requires the resistance presented by a regular incandescent bulb. Luckily, someone on the Audio-Technica forums who goes by the name of Les E has provided a complete write-up on how to switch out the regular incandescent bulbs for LED ones. Long story short, you need to add a 330 ohm resistor across the base of the bulb socket in order to present the circuit with the proper resistance, as you can see by this picture. If you're going to take on this project though, definitely check out the thread in the Audio-Technica forums. I'll leave a link in the show notes. Another very common problem, specifically with the ST7 model, is that there is a rubber wheel that rides along the roller to move the Tonearm carriage. This rubber wheel breaks down over time and basically turns to goo, as you can see in this picture. This will be more of a heads up than a full-on restoration tip, since this is a pretty big project and could use a video of its own. It's certainly not an easy fix. You need to take apart the entire Tonearm carriage mechanism system to get at that wheel. Take your time, pay attention, take some pictures, and remember where everything goes. Scrape all that goo off, give it a good cleaning, and install the number 31 O-ring. Once you get everything put back together, hopefully your Tonearm carriage is moving properly. For my final tip today, I'd like to address the noisy mechanicals. I noticed when playing things loud, some of the mechanical noises of the turntable operating were making it to my speakers. I used some sound deadening material to improve this situation. Specifically, I used Dynamat, although I'm sure there were many other solutions that you could use. I pretty much put the Dynamat material anywhere that I felt I could put it without impacting the mechanical functionality of the turntable. This improved the situation significantly, and I have to say, even when cranked up loud, I just don't hear all those noises that I was hearing before. So this is a highly recommended modification and improvement. So there you have it, the Harman Kardon Rabco line of turntables. These turntables are really what got me interested and excited about doing videos. They're so interesting. There's so many unique components to them and the way that they work. I hope you enjoyed it. There's certainly so much more that could be covered. Please check out the show notes if you're interested in learning more. I put tons of links in there to great threads that talk all about this turntable, how to fix it, how to use it, how to tweak it. And a special thanks to Les, who goes by Les E, and Rick, who goes by RRRead13 on the Audio-Technica forums. I learned so much from them, and all that information is still out there on the forums. Thanks so much, guys. And thank you for joining me today on Audio Expo.